Britain's membership has been one long series of bitter rows about butter and fish, French apples and British lamb.
We also said that was a fight, to let them in, and once in, everything would be nice and beautiful and great. Unfortunately, it did not went that way.
Unemployment is not totally the result of our entrance into the common market. Our industrial decline is not purely our entrance into the common market, and neither have food prices gone up only because we've entered the common market. But the fact that we're in the common market has made all those problems worse.
Some of my friends in Britain mix these two things together and think that membership of the community is the reason for these economic problems.
It's not a desire in our hearts, or in my mind, as is evident, for instance, in Enoch Powell, to reassert the sovereignty of Britain, to wave the flag, to brush up the old lion, to give the Queen's tiara a shine and make us great again. I'm looking at it as a way of building socialism, not as a way of building a sort of nationalist Union Jack-based England.
Mr. President, we mark today with this ceremony the conclusion of arduous negotiations over more than 10 years, which have resulted in another great step forward towards the removal of divisions in Western Europe.
Just 10 years ago tomorrow, Edward Heath's signature of the Treaty of Rome came into force. Britain, along with Ireland and Denmark, became a member of the European Community. It's been a difficult decade for Britain, and now some opinion polls show that more than half the population would like Britain out. Perhaps surprisingly, therefore, most European leaders, whatever their party, insist that they are glad that Britain joined. What was unfortunate, says the former West German Chancellor Willy Brandt, was the timing of Britain's membership.
It's my feeling that British membership either came too late or too early. By too late, I mean it would have been better had Britain been among the founding fathers of the whole thing and could have influenced the process and the institutions and whatnot. When it came, it almost coincided with a new world economic situation. The crisis was starting, unemployment growing, financial difficulties getting bigger, and I think some of my friends in Britain mix these two things together and think that membership of the community is the reason for these economic problems.
Etienne d'Avignon, the community's industry commissioner, stresses the political advantages of Britain's membership.
In political terms, the Europe of the 10, the community, is Western Europe. And that would have not been the case if the UK had not been in. And I think that's important for our relations with the United States, with our relations with the Japanese. We are now, if we want to use it, a force of our own, and we wouldn't have been that if the United Kingdom hadn't been in it. And I feel that this year has made this point, and I think the United Kingdom government agrees with it. The second point is that it's made life more complicated. When you are 10 and you try to integrate economies, it makes life more complicated. That, I think, is not a surprise. The question is, can we overcome these complications? So far we have. We always remember the difficulties and the pain. We sometimes forget about the results. And I think the balance sheet, politically and technically, in my mind, is certainly a positive one.
If the Europeans on the whole welcome us to the community, Britain's membership has been one long series of bitter rows about butter and fish, French apples and British lamb, and above all about the two major financial issues, the common agricultural policy, under which Britain, one of the less wealthy members of the community, pays far more than any other member, and the related question of Britain's contribution to the community's overall budget. So unfavourable has Britain's experience of membership been in some people's eyes that the Labour Party is now formally committed to negotiating British withdrawal. I asked the Labour spokesman on European affairs, Eric Heffer, how he would draw up a balance sheet of Britain's 10 years in Europe.
Well, I think in the main column there would be a sort of great red blob, because we really have got into the red as far as the economy is concerned. It's been quite disastrous. There's been a tremendous growth in unemployment. Food prices have shot up. We've also had a position where our fishing fleets have been badly battered. Our regional policy has been almost destroyed. And taking it by and large, I can only say it's been dreadful as far as the British people are concerned.
But wouldn't all of those things have happened anyway? Food prices, for example, was surely not the result only of our being in Europe.
Well, I think it's absolutely true, and one has to be completely fair and say that unemployment is not totally the result of our entrance into the common market. Our industrial decline is not purely our entrance into the common market, and neither have food prices gone up only because we've entered the common market. But the fact that we're in the common market has made all those problems worse.
Labour critics stress Britain's bad economic experience of membership, but that's not the main reason why they want us out, as Richard Balfe, a Labour member of the European Parliament, explains.
What we're saying is that you can't carry out certain key sections of the Labour Party manifesto, especially the interventionist sections to protect jobs and build up the economy, within the framework of the Treaty of Rome. That leaves us one of two options. Either we leave and implement the manifesto, or we stay in and knock certain key sections out of the manifesto. We can't do both. I think the British people have a right to expect that a government, the next Labour government, will actually carry out the policies on which it's elected. Now, we can't unless we leave. So this policy, this decision, is a consequence of others. It's not a desire in our hearts, or in my mind, as is evident, for instance, in Enoch Powell, to reassert the sovereignty of Britain, to wave the flag, to brush up the old lion, to give the Queen's tiara a shine and make us great again. I'm looking at it as a way of building socialism, not as a way of building a sort of nationalist Union Jack-based England.
Ladies and gentlemen, 10 years ago, the United Kingdom, together with Denmark and Ireland, stood poised to join the European communities. It was
The President of the European Commission, Gaston Thorn, has been in Britain recently, putting the case for British membership. I asked him to look back and compare his expectations of 10 years ago with his experience since then.
Honestly, it was more difficult than I would have thought. You know, those 10 years of fight where some countries or some governments said no to Great Britain, we all saw that that was a fight to let them in. And once in, everything would be nice and beautiful and great. Unfortunately, it did not went that way, and then came the environment, I would say the political and economic crisis around. So it's more difficult, but it's more difficult for everybody. But I have no regret. I think it was a good thing to do.
And for the future?
For the future, well, we have only a future together.